Good afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Shurin, working as a research associate at SANEM. I would like to welcome you all to Bay of Bengal Regional Integration Capacity Building Program, organized by SANEM and the Asia Foundation. The program is a part of our commitment to the regional integration and the cooperation of the BIMSTEC region. We will start our capacity building program with the first session titled Regional Value Chain, Connectivity and BIMSTEC, which will be conducted by Dr. Probir Dey. Before starting, I would like to request Dr. Salim Raihan, the Executive Director of SANEM, to say a few words.
Thank you, Dr. Shurin. I'm sorry, my video can't be on because I was in a separate meeting, but I will join you shortly once I reach my office. But I welcome you all to this very important capacity building program. This is kind of a part of our ongoing work at SANEM. We have been working for long on these regional integration issues and more focusing on the BIMSTEC and or broadly the Bay of Bengal region, different cooperation and integration process. And as part of our research and activities, we conducted various seminars and conferences too. For example, in July on 11 and 12, we organized the third Bay of Bengal Economic Dialogue in Bangkok in collaboration with the Asia Foundation and Chulalongkorn University and some other regional partners. And that was a big success. We came up with a document, outcome document of that dialogue, and we call it Bangkok Declaration. And we handed over that document to the BIMSTEC Secretariat because the idea was that our understanding was that the BIMSTEC summit would take place during first week of September. Unfortunately, it didn't happen and it has been postponed, but we are hopeful that it will take place sometime in November or December this year. So this document would really help into the kind of dialogue process in the BIMSTEC formal discussion process. But what we also try to do that some of the very important issues in this BIMSTEC region, and especially related to regional integration, related to some of the emerging challenges, we want to really discuss these issues with the stakeholders in this region. And that's why this capacity building program is initiated. I'm really glad and thankful to our resource persons here from this region, and they will actually conduct these sessions. And session format will remain kind of structured, but a little bit informal too. The speakers, they will speak for around 35 to 40 minutes or a little more than that, and there will be chances for open discussion. So from SANEM, Shurit will help us in kind of moderating the sessions as well as collecting questions and passing those questions to the speakers, or speakers they themselves can also choose the questions to answer. So I again thank everyone, the participants. I know that it's a weekend in many South Asian countries or BIMSTEC countries, but we are very grateful that you are participating, and we are expecting larger participation too. So with this, I now invite Mr. Mohammad Tahirul Islam from Asia Foundation. He's the program manager, and for sharing his few words. Over to you, Mohammad Tahirul Islam.
Yes, thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, colleagues. Next, I would like to thank you, Dr. Salim Raihan, for a nice introduction. Nothing much on my end. I just want to
thank you for your time. As sir said, that this is in some countries this is a weekend, so welcoming all to this program, I think is a very good opportunity for us to exchange our views and knowledge that actually help us to make a better regional integration. And I'm really very excited to learn from the sessions today. And today we will be discussing regional value chains, connectivity, and energy cooperation among BIMSTEC nations. That's actually really very priority issues for Bangladesh and other BIMSTEC countries. So thank you very much. I think that it will be a very nice discussions, and we will connect each other and love. So welcoming all and once again, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mohammad Tahirul Islam. and we really value the cooperation between SANEM and Asia Foundation and other regional partners. So I now request Shurit. I see Dr. Probitde, he has joined. So
Yes, sir.
Shurit, if you can kindly introduce Dr. Probitde, and all the remaining part will be in the safe hand of Dr. Probitde.
Sure, sir. Now, I would like to welcome Dr. Probitde. Dr. Probitde is the professor at Research and Information System for Developing Countries, New Delhi. He has over 3 decades of full-time research and teaching experience in India and abroad. He works in the field of international economics and has the research interest in international trade and development. He has conducting the policy research for the government of India and several national and international organizations, including UN agencies. Graduating from the Scottish Church College in Kolkata, he has completed his master's in economics from Kolkata University and PhD in economics from Jadavpur University. Dr. Dey has contributed several research papers and international in journals and written the books on trade and development. He is the founding editor of the Journal of Asia in Economic Integration, published by SAGE. Before starting, I would like to again inform you about the session rules. Dr. Probitde will deliver his lecture for around 45 minutes. Then the floor will be open for the open discussion and question answer session. We kindly request you to use the raise hand option if you want to add something, or you can also write down your question or comments in the chat box. Now I would like to request Dr. Probitde to start the session. Over to you, Dr. Probitde.
Yeah. Thank you, Surid, and thank you, Sanem, for the invitation and introduction. Since I put an apology beginning that I got late. I'm sorry, things sometime, not in your control. So what I'm going to do for the next 30 minutes to 45 minutes to speak on regional value chains connectivity. I have a disclaimer to start with, that I have so many slides. Many of them, I have done it intentionally because this is a capacity training program. So, and sometimes, I have to skip some of the slides. I'll be sharing it with you through the organizer. You can keep it, we can have further discussion. If we can't make it in 40 to 45 minutes today, we will certainly be in touch through the organizer or directly if you have any questions or any clarifications or your observations. So, Surit, can you allow me to share my slides?
Sir, we are watching your slides, sir.
No, how can I? Because slides is with me. Can you see my slide?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Slides are visible.
Oh, really? Okay. So, okay. Let me, the outline for today's discussion is the value chain, but, interchangeably, I will be use the word GVC and RVC. GVC stands for global value chain, and replacing G by R, it becomes a regional value chain. Theoretical construct for GVC and RVC, almost similar, almost. So little bit about academic, that how do we measure GVC? What's the difference between GVC and GPN, Global Production Network? What is the difference between GVC and IPN, International Production Network? So there are many nomenclature, many terminologies. I will try to touch some of them. Then there is another component here in my presentation is about the connectivity. Connectivity and GVC, they are interlinked. So why it is so important for connectivity from the GVC? In economic literature, state facilitation. So that's another disclaimer from my side. I'm not going to talk about diplomatic aspects of connectivity. I'm not a competent person for that. Then, what is the BIMSTEC? What is the current status? Briefly, I will touch upon. Certainly towards the end, what are the major challenges, and this kind of training and capacity building program, we need to understand the way forward and the takeaways. So these are the broad outlines. And these, and sometime, you might find that some of my slides or some of my talk are disjointed. That's, pardon me, because, this is the presentation based on my existing work. Because it connects countries, it exchanges goods and services. There are very strong literature on the GVCs. And what is so important in the GVC is the supply chain. And we know that during the pandemic time, it was supply chain resilience, which is actually countries most concerned. That if there are disruption in the supply chain, GVCs becomes an, of 2001, from there, the 2010 equipment and others, So they give it a better idea. Like how do you calculate it? It's very simple. Earlier, it was very complicated formula. The current formula, which is I have mentioned here, the better methodology in the sense that if you'd like to country I for the time, if you like to measure the GVC participation of the country I for the time T, it is the FVA plus DVA. That is the forward. Arrangements, different calculations are available across different international organizations, including national organizations like IDE, Institute of Developing Economies, in Jetro in Tokyo. Well, it is very important, very appealing to us because over 65% of the global trade is routed through the value chain. For the countries to come out with the policy measures, new policy insights in terms of trade policy, connectivity, supply chain, foreign investment, technology, skilling, upskilling, particularly climate issues, gender, and many others. You know that there is a great flood happened in the bank suburb in 2011, and that actually disrupted the automobile production, processed food production, and many others, fertilizers, cements. So those who are connected through global value chains, those are heavily impacted. And it took Thailand quite a long time to recover the losses and come back and re-establish the value chain. So climate issues, very important, gender aspects as well. So in broad, the GVC, we refer to the international production sharing between the countries. And we need to remember that there are activities and there are tasks handling the production process, more about the slicing of the production or slicing of the trade. Let me give you the difference first between GVC and IPN, GPN. GVC, as I said, is basically the production networks between countries. And we measure it by the backward and forward linkage. Forward linkage, for example, case of Bangladesh garment industries, if it is exported to India, so we call it as a forward linkage. But Bangladesh is also drawing some raw materials, some services, some networks by the farms. When you talk about production network by the farms, we call it in downstream industry, petroleum downstream, or processed food downstream, or upstream, petroleum products, the diesel, for example, which is an upstream products. Petroleum, any kind of value addition done by the farms, so which we count into both in the upstream or in the downstream. So both GVC and GPN in countries for a measurement purpose, it is a GVC. When you talk about the connecting countries from the farms, it is a GPN. Well, a little bit about methodology. How do we, calculate value addition between this country A, B, C, D? These are taken from the UNCTAD. These are participating countries. Countries consume raw materials, then process, final goods produced, and there's the final demand comes. So, if you see my left-hand side, the country in A, for example, there are two types of production process here links. One is the domestic value addition, one is the foreign value additions. So the purpose of showing this slide is to there is a kind of a double counting, by the way. So when we talk about value addition, we need to be very careful. So for example, the country, but remember we are doing a double counting because unit 2 has already been counted by country 2. So in that same way, when you come to the country D, which is the final demand, total would be the gross exports will be 100. You add 2 plus 26 plus 72. The domestic value is 72, and then double counting would be 28. So when you talk about the country-wise value addition GVC form, we need to be a bit careful. Passed away, and I was a direct student because of Sanya Lazarus in Calcutta University. There are Kimura and Ando both have worked on this in the production fragmentations. Now they have given this illustration that before fragmentation it was the one large integrated factory. After fragmentation, mainly driven by the free trade agreement, the production large integrated factory where inputs going into an output under one roof of a factory, it gets sliced, depending on Zara or Marks and Spencer. If it is a cotton shirt, the fabric comes from India. If it is a synthetic, fabric comes from China. It gets sliced, different design. One type of shirts is required by Indian people, another type of shirts required by Thai people, another type of shirts required by the American, European, because it varies, So, and different kind of standards, etc. So these are the production blocks. And SL stands for service link, which we explain is the connectivity or trade facilitation. So Professor Kimura and his PhD student, Ando, and Professor Jones, Chris Korsky, Sanyal, they have given a theoretical foundation, and which is, the way, we explain when thing of the trade. Get example, if because of the FDA, production parts and components move from one supplier country to another country. For example, it is in India, which does the value addition, and then it goes in domestic market or in the export. So Professor Atakurla said that, look, this is not purely a production fragmentation. This is also a trade fragmentation because ultimately it goes by a free trade agreement. Somewhere, it is production parts and components feeding into a factory, large factory or small different factories, but it is through the trade. So he explained in his paper that it is basically a trade fragmentation. He didn't say anything about the production fragmentation. I had a long agreement, quality of agreements, FDI, logistics, standards, product standards, process standards, technology, those are very much important in driving the trade fragmentations. Like common about both production and trade is the time-sensitive logistics. Just-in-time delivery, time-sensitive logistics, those are basically the common that both which production fragmentation and trade fragmentation, they said, we need a very sophisticated, high-quality logistics. If there are disruption, that means supply chain resilience issues, then production will be hampered or trade will be hampered. Let me move on quickly to finish the part of the what do we mean by GVC. Get example given by the Meng and Mirodot from OECD. In France or in America, but it is supplied by different countries across the world. And that has driven basically the drive for assembly one particular country. If it's a Boeing, example for the Dreamliner 787, or if it is an Airbus A330 in France, basically lower tariff, faster technological progress, less non-tariff issues, very liberal rules of origin, free trade areas. Those are basically helping, forming the global value chains. And of course, this global value chains have also driven the global trade, right? Another example for the global GVC is the iPhone. This is the old picture made by my friend from the ADB Institute in 2000. Richard Baldwin and others in the Graduate Institute in Geneva, who came out with the third unbundling, which is the calling about driven by in the industrial relations, and artificial intelligence or any kind of technology, digital technology, for slicing of global tasks. In that, anyway, in iPhone 7, today we have launched iPhone 16, almost double the number of series editions. But that time, China, Taiwan, many other countries have provided their inputs, production inputs to a particular location in China. Final goods produced, and they have sent it to the American rest of the world. So this is another example of the GVC. So let me now tell you that what exactly motivating the formation of the GVCs, particularly in the developing countries, called this Bay of Bengal. Well, in some of my studies, I have noted it that there are two factors, enabling factors, there are enabling conditions. You have a very good logistics facilities, but if you are running, an authoritarian regime, or if the political arrangements are not good, if there are not, peace and prosperity in the country, or some regions of a particular country, your enabling conditions may not match your enabling factors. Many of the countries across the developing world or in the Bay of Bengal, we have very good enabling factors or enabling conditions that don't match. So if you come to these, four boxes, activity, technology, the market, these five are essential conditions to help countries forming GVCs. And I have given an example from another paper with Nida Rehman and myself in 2022. India's GVC participation from the ASEAN. India is an example, that we normally went for and very much in the high domestic market. So participation in the global value chain in India is much laggard in the region. So, but slowly due to the free trade agreement and opening its market, connecting with the neighboring countries with the faster airlines or ocean transportation, allowing liberal trade policy, investment policy, we see the rise of, value chains. In this case, 2011, 17, 2020. Based on the Bureau databases, it indicates that India's domestic value addition is the largest chunk when you talk about the ASEAN, Southeast Asia. We had an FTA signed in 2010. Thereafter, value chain, post FTA, it has a phenomenal progress. So red one is the, which is the foreign value additions. So this is what this indicates the domestic value addition has grown disproportionately, but it also has given the foreign value addition inputs for which it's come from Southeast Asia using the free trade agreement. Remind you, as I said in the definition, there's a double counting. Double counting is equally, quite a big number. Well, what are the barriers in that sense? The trade policy point of view, there are trade cost, tariff and non-tariff measures. Other speakers or some other occasions will be covering more on that. In human capital and skill development, continuous basis, lack of good quality institutions. If we don't have institutions, who is going to guide the government or participating countries in that sense, from the regional value chains, the global value chains? And of course, foremost is the trade facilitation like customs cooperation, border infrastructure. All are equally important and they're interconnected. I am going to talk more about the trade facilitation. So let's come to the second part of my presentation. When you talk about trade facilitation, it is basically supply chain resilience. Now, Bay of Bengal countries, they're not part of the global shipping disruptions, right? Which one is indicate that during the COVID time, there were no vessels. So rates were very, very low. And so similar kind of scenario is coming because all the vessels, most of them are in the ocean because they can't cross either Suez or Panama. Siltation, heavy siltations in the ports like Chattogram, Russia, Ukraine war effect, rates are very high. So these are the challenges, our value chain networks very much, or GPN networks. And we need to, Bay of Bengal countries, as I said, that these are the issues, the global issues. But if you talk about the Bay of Bengal, BIMSTEC, for that matter, South Asia, SAARC, international air freight all over the world, because there is, a crisis here. It's happening in this Gulf of Aden, because of the Houthis attack. This is purely, and Islamic issues. I don't want to go and discuss, and very much. So disruptions is actually heavily affecting global value chain of the, and in political disruptions, all of them are adding to the production cost, production time, trade cost, trade time, and small vulnerable economies like Maldives or depend on tourism or Sri Lanka or Bangladesh or Nepal or Bhutan. In that way, the domestic market is relatively small. Lack of regional integrations effects for larger economies are low, disproportionate effect on them low. Smaller economies are very high because of these uncertain factors. So when we talk about the sophistication or transition from the global value chains, from low level to high level, this kind of disruptions actually pull it down. One is that we produce just a commodity like Laupidi or Myanmar. Then we move into a limited manufacturing like Bangladesh, Philippines, Thailand, India, China, and in between Australia, Cambodia, Indonesia, and Vietnam. After limited manufacturing, fine. But as soon as you move from limited manufacturing, if you'd like to go up in the value chain, like advanced manufacturing with more services or sophistication or more innovations like Koreans are doing, Singaporean, Japan, or part of in China or Thailand and the Philippines are doing, we need to have very strong, undisrupted supply chain, very strong logistics network. COVID-19, the last time in the pandemic, load, which is the observatory that we have that data from MIT lab, that this nicely pictures tells you the Bangladesh linkages. That Bangladesh basically imported from Asia Pacific countries, mostly from the Asia Pacific countries, it's raw material, and in Thailand, in China, and in India. But if you look at Bangladesh exports, where it is going, mostly the rest of the world because it's going to the US and many countries because of the garments. Similarly, if you come to India, I've given some examples here, the car, Toyota, and the Dell computer. Indians are also importing mostly from China and Japan and now Southeast Asia. But when it goes to the Indians, who are buyers of India, they are going to rest of the world, 39, about 40%. Some go back to Southeast Asia and East Asia as well. What about Sri Lanka? Very similar kind of a pattern, and also Sri Lanka follows. It is China and India, and when it goes to Sri Lanka's export, it is Germany and Belgium. That's because of the their garments and other the products that Sri Lanka export. Thailand is more diversified. They consume, they source more from China, Japan, but they are Southeast Asia or East Asia, both are their global destination for their final goods. Well, these are the quality indicates that Thailand, among the 7 countries, has the most regional production networks in terms of their export, 45%, and India is the most from the importing side. In between, and the other countries fall in between. And I looked at, based on the products, basically, between Bangladesh, India, Sri Lanka, Thailand. Data is available freely. One can calculate based on even counted data with the help of WEETS type of products. Here, the data indicates electrical machinery, road vehicles, food processing, textile, apparel, and clothing. They are more interconnected regional. Some examples, I have drawn, since it is a training program, data is available from the WEETS. You can also draw, like HS30, pharmaceutical products. Like the diabetic, so we consume this metformin. But nowadays, I was told that if you consume metformin, it is a lifestyle drug. Because if you like to reduce your wealth, reduce your health, you consume metformin, you will get it sick, but don't do it. If it is not a lifestyle drug at all. China, they are providing the API, and Richamp is the trade, export of India as well. India is a global export. So if you put the chain of the countries, who are the supplier, who are the buyer, it's mostly the supplier my right side, your left side illustration, it tells you it is India, along with several European countries and America. And the buyer mostly the US. Remember, the pharmaceutical products, most of the buyers are the US. In the way I have seen, the fabric, Reliance Trend is a company, then Pune Assembly Factory. So they are suppliers to the Reliance company, and mostly it is coming from China. And the buyers of Reliance, then you can yourself can analyze this kind of mapping of a trade. Who are the supplier, who are the buyer? These are the footwears. These are articles of iron and steel pipes. These are the automobile. Most of the suppliers are from European countries, East Asian countries. Most of the buyers in US are also finished mobile phones in America and European countries. I've given an Apple 16 launch, and what's the current status? Apple 16 basically is manufactured by Apple companies, Indian plants as well as Chinese plants. Indian one, it is shipped globally. Apple would like to capture almost about 60% of the market share in India, huge market in India, and that is China, Cambodia, and Japan using the FTA. Here. By the way, Apple 16 has 160 parts and components. 160, those are important. When you come to the laptops, HS8471, the Lenovo assembly plant we have in Puducherry, in Pondicherry. Most of the suppliers are Singapore, China, Thailand, and Malaysia. Let's come to some other examples in the Bay of Bengal region, specific to the Bay of Bengal, which are the Uniqlo, the Japanese investment. We have lots of Bangladeshi products here coming in Delhi. If I walk into an Uniqlo supermarket, many of the other countries are sending. Similarly, Pran, if I walk into the H&M or Zara or the Trends, we get, Bay of Bengal and the BIMSTEC and connectivity. Very quickly, I'm not going to repeat many of the things. The audience is quite a learned audience. So Bay of Bengal integration, basically this is an economic integration. There is a very strong civilizational links, shared culture, common water, shared language. My language is almost similar to both the maritime as well as by the land. 7 countries, except if you leave out Sri Lanka, all are land connected. So land is a big advantage for us. 75% of us is international border at the land and 25% maritime. Now, when it comes to the maritime, I said it is in the most happening place because these are the clusters, are the projects like and programs and many initiatives on the maritime front, either terminals, ports, etc. Little about a divergence, but anyway, divergence in terms of economic growth or economic size. Bangladesh, for example, it's grown heavily till 2003, until in the last decade before COVID. It's slightly slowed down. A country like Myanmar, it went to the negative zone. That means there are complementarities, there are interest for countries to have more interaction in terms of economic exchange of goods and services, which is actually precondition if you would like to have, kind of an economic integration in front. And on top, there are 2 countries, Bhutan and Nepal. They depend, on Bay of Bengal more than anyone else. Bhutan, for example, 98% of their global trade, they depend on Bay of Bengal. So also the Nepal, so 2 landlocked countries who are very much vulnerable. It is a compulsion, it is a shared challenge for all of 7 countries to stay together, strengthen the regional integration, for the shared benefits, shared prosperity. Let me see what happened to the economic front before to the connectivity. We see there's a kind of a very impressive progress, like trade, interregional. If you compare with other CAREC, GMS, SARC, and SASEC, BIMSTEC actually comes next to the GMS in terms of their interregional trade, and their in country-wise interregional trade is also going, up. For example, the country like it is 2019, but post 2019, there relatively smaller than compared to others. There are more opportunities when you talk about the trade of the land border, and if you can see the data between 2017-18 to 2023-24, trade between the land borders in the BBIN countries, it reached a peak in 2022 and 23. And so land border connectivity, border infrastructure, those need to be strengthened. That's what we are talking about. So, and certainly there is a value chain linkages as well, because some of the states in the northeast, like Tripura, they're looking at Bangladesh, Chattogram, Matharbari, and Cox's Bazar, for example, Kumilla in that way, Bamanberry or Sylhet in that way, to get it integrated from that in terms of that economy. What are the key determinants in the GBC that's specific to India? And I said it because India's GBC participation, both in backward and forward and upstream and downstream, is good step. The distance. So we need US and China distance. One is the US is the buyer, most of India pharmaceutical or automobile, or China the supplier. So we do not have a direct ocean transportation or direct air cargo. So this would be the big challenge for India. Whatever we see below the ocean, like India's inverted duty structure and non-tariff measures, issues like Karotar, there are several issues on the FTAs. So those are very, very important key determinants for GBC, particularly in context of India. Maybe these are also equally applicable to other Bay of Bengal countries. Challenges on the economic front, it's primarily high tariff barriers, lack of seamless connectivity, and I have taken, the areas like tariff liberalization, non-tariff, customs cooperation, investment cooperation, value chain, etc., their current achievements. You can see most of them, if you leave us out tariff liberalization, 7 countries' achievements are basically moderate to slow. We expected them customs cooperation to be high, but Bay of Bengal customs cooperation in that way, it's not that much impressive. So 3 barriers, challenges: high trade but non-tariff particularly. There is no FTA, it's going on for a pretty long time. And the free trade agreement, there are many issues. Certainly there is a trade session, they will be talking about BIMSTEC FTA. When we talk about a value chain, FTA is very important because rules of origin. If in an FTA rules of origin is agreed upon and it becomes very liberal, then it helps value chain, creating regional value chains in that. And investment is also very low. We expect production networks to grow cross-border, but at the same time we prohibit investment. We have several trade restrictions across the border. So these are some of the major challenges. Well, when you talk about the industrial value chains, what we see, there are some good achievements, by the way, kind of in development. We have seen, coming out with the new corridors. Relation, I do not know in which way it will be, but some projects like other Bay of Bengal countries, they might look at it. E-Subida, which is introduced in software to facilitate the movement of cargo vehicles across border, particularly India and Bangladesh. There are several economic zones in Bangladesh and Bhutan, like Galefu, Matharbari in Bangladesh, Mirsarai in Bangladesh, Sabrum in India, Tripura. So these are the economic zones we have identified. Some are under construction. We're going to strengthen the industrial value chains in the sub-regions. Some significant development happened, and I am unable to go because of the time restrictions in detail on the road front, on the customs front, on the railway sites, both at Petrapol, Benapol and Sabrum, Ramgarh. Some of them are kindly now basically keep on hold like inaugural of Sabrum and Ramgarh border posts. There are good examples for energy pipeline, which is in India, Nepal, or India, Bangladesh. These are the very unique projects that actually helped improving, quality of infrastructure, quality of trade, as well as, people who are living in that locality. New, corridors between India, Bhutan, India, Bangladesh, India, Southeast Asia. These are the new corridor being discussed. As I was talking about that sub-room, where we wanted to come out with a kind of an, this is the multimodal transit transport, where India has built a port at Situate, Mekong India economic corridor connecting India with Southeast Asia, development of the port at the Daboyan economic zone by the Indian companies. There are new other projects in the Northeast India, looking at in Bangladesh and Bhutan, like a Gelefu mindfulness city in Bhutan, or Tata companies' investment in semiconductor in Morigaon, which is near to in Guwahati, Matarbari deep sea project. So what these countries have done, given that hard infrastructure, the softer side, mostly it is the countries are mostly done is unilateral software, because you can build a road, but you at the same time you need the software to support it. So most of the software trade facilitation, in other words, it is basically done by unilateral WTO trade facilitation. Bangladesh is an example which has joined the cross-border UNSCAP, but UNSCAP paperless trade is just the beginning. Most of the Bay of Bengal countries are not yet a part. These are some performance that when you talk about trade facilitation, the cross-border trade facilitation between countries is missing. Countries, they have gone into transparency, more transparent, less formalities, more institutional arrangements. They have more paperless trade domestically, but when it comes to between the country cross-border paperless trade, performance is not that impressive. And here it is very important when you talk about value chain, because the 6 elements like laws and regulation, electronic transaction, recognition of certification authorities, exchange of custom declaration, online submission of certificate of origin, online submission of SPS certificate, online submission of paperless payment system between the countries, particularly documentary letter of credit. These 6 things are very much important. It's the large economy, it has gone worldwide, introduced so soft aspects of connected facilitation, either e-payment, digital payment, supply chain security, tracking of the vessels, customs cooperation to authorized economic operators, submission of e-certificate of origin, FTA, blah, blah, blah. Lots of things across the world. There are some best practices which can be introduced, in the Bay of Bengal as well. Quickly, in 2 minutes, by the way, I have to tell you what is BIMSTEC. BIMSTEC is 7 countries formal arrangements. It has a charter in place. We could not do the summit. We do not know when the summit is coming up. The BIMSTEC chairmanship, until the summit takes place, won't come to Bangladesh. We want Bangladesh to lead the BIMSTEC, for 2 years as per the charter. BIMSTEC summit takes place, they can't go much. So summit is very important for take forward the BIMSTEC master plan project. So these are some projects identified by I'm not going to repeat them. Let's come to very, very last on that. Why it is so important for Bangladesh? Because we see the Bangladesh going to chair the BIMSTEC, and Bangladesh FTA with Southeast Asian countries, the Japan, Bangladesh FTA, the bilateral to India is going to be, adding more strength to the BIMSTEC and also the value chain. There are 3 candidates: hard infrastructure, soft infrastructure, capacity development, training program. And since we don't have time, we can't discuss much of it, but there are many scope to elevate our connectivity corporations. Well, if I may conclude, trade facilitation is a very essential conditions. There are 2 aspects. What the countries they need to do unilaterally, as though India, Bangladesh are doing, digital part, which is going to facilitate GVC. There are endogenous aspects. It depends on each other, like FTA or rules of origin or rationalization, NTM. If I liberalize my standard, I expect Bangladesh also to reciprocate that. So this is endogenous. Well, this I discussed. These are some best practices. No need to skip it there. India, for example, this is an I have said it purposefully for others. What India is doing, India has moved out of the mode is contactless, paperless. Green infrastructure, green ports, green shipping, infrastructure for semiconductor industries. As you have seen, or you've been watching, India is presently hosting many investment on the semiconductors and infrastructure for renewable energy and transmission. And India setting up a new institution and resources like Gati Shakti master plan. So all it tells that if Thailand and India is going into this direction in sustainable trade and sustainable trade facilitation, other countries also need to be connected if we need to make it, regionalized. Recommendations. Well, this is, I don't want to recommend, but keep in this your mind that FTA completion, cross-border exchange of trade goods, documentation. This was my last. This is my last slide. The way forward. I personally feel that it is the Bay of Bengal. It's the golden heartland. If you cannot get any other sub-regional region like Bay of Bengal, which is the golden heartland, strong word. If you come across, please send to me. I would like to read through them. We high potentials. We should not keep it more unrealized by any kind of disruption of supply chain or political relations. Connectivity.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for your nice presentation. Now I would like to request our audience to, if you have any questions, please use the raise hand option and you can share your views or any question. You can also type your questions in the chat box.
In the services sector, I have covered most in the goods sector. I have not done. This is not possible, goods and services all in 45 minutes. Of course, the healthcare services is one of the key components along with tourism, along with education. And if I see the impact is huge, but you may like to know if there are disruption between countries. So impact of healthcare services between Next questions by Mr. Pialuddin, that can you emphasize the transboundary river agreement with India and Bangladesh regarding the southern flood? Look, this is not my presentation, right? I'm sorry, I have to skip that. Somebody, maybe those who will be talking about the water issues, they can. Can you tell me about the focus with India and Bangladesh about the river sharing? Again, I'm not a competent person on the. This is a session on value chain. I can answer, but please, I am not a competent to talk about here in this session. The last question is that, sir, I want to know how to create global opportunities in partnership with exchange of political economy, information, new trade traders. Well, if you are representing some firms, some companies, I think the best way to look at B2B arrangements done by different countries. There are global portals. If you would like to export new products, you need to look at your buyers, your suppliers. So there are many B2B portals. That much I know. I cannot go in detail. But your second part is very important: exchange of political economy information. So once you identify your suppliers or your buyers, it is the exchange is on. It depends on what kind of information they want, and what your bias, political economy arrangements. There are information available, which is the World Economic Forum, for example, very good quality data. World Bank, they provide. Several international organizations. SANEM will help you. SANEM has also a very good quality databases. So that much, I can give an answer to your question. Well, so there is no questions in the chat box, so that means I am done.
If anyone from the audience have any question, you can also raise your hand and ask sir directly.
Of GBC. So there are number of databases. Their input-output table is also available, and then trade in value added. TIVA databases there.
Right.
So, sir, can we use any of that database? Can we use any of that database for the estimation? Like in TIVA, you have this convenience that they give you domestic value added, foreign value added, calculated.
Correct.
So can we use that database for the estimation of GBC participation?
Mine once again. Can you see this slide?
Yes, sir.
So the GVC participation of country I for the time T is very simple arithmetic. You have the foreign value added, where from you get from the mirror table, mirror database, right? From the TIVA or the ADB one, that they provide by country, by GVC, less the number is a low GVC participation. So that much is very simple. Both foreign value added and domestic value added are available in the mirror database. I think, if you have any, many others they have been doing, and there are many good quality papers. You can yourself calculate based on the input-output table of the countries and many other, methodologies those are available. Like ID JETRO, they have calculated their own, Japan for that matter, all of the trade partners, their participation in the value chains by their own methodology. So they have created an input-output table, which they call Asian input-output table. So similar, contributions many countries have done. So far as I'm concerned, this is very simple, and one can refer to it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Because I put an apology in the way that my presentation is not academic or not a purely policy. It's in between. So I need to bring here both the policy parameters, like the task given by SANEM to speak about the connectivity. Some are
Maybe there is no more questions here. So you can also discuss the remaining slides after you have it. As we have some 10 minutes more.
Well, so this is the new question. No, I have not. Salim, I know it is that, sir, Paira port is being delivered Chinese. If the scenario which is the Sri Lanka port being taken over by China, intervene. No. See, this is questions I won't be able to answer. But overall, on the port scenario, look, the Bangladesh, you have a port like Mongla, Paira, Chattogram. You have several river ports. Going to lose your, not very soon, your this developed country preferences, LDC preferences. So you need to stand on your own, you need to build your own ports, high quality airports, seaports, etc. For that matter, the Matarbari port is very important. Getting it connected with Colombo, Singapore, or many other hub ports would help Bangladesh to foster exports and foster import of your garments and for that matter any other goods, etc. Well, another question is he has asked what scenarios might arise in the global supply chain. Of course, as I said, that Bangladesh, it doesn't have, or for that matter, some parts of India as well, because in Nepal, Bhutan, they depend on Bangladesh and India for the export import. If our ports get silted, it's a huge challenge for Bangladesh and for that matter, Bay of Bengal economies. And this would be, huge effect on our supply chain as well. And I have seen, I introduced in the very beginning, importance of chicken snake is, is there. Of course, it is, very much because it connects northeast with the rest of the India. So, strengthening the chicken snake is very important. But we want to open, another corridor with Bangladesh for Bhutan, rest of India, and the Nepal as well. So that's what earlier we have discussed. Second, last question. I think we are losing our priority status because of the LDC graduation. Will our text industry be able to handle the blow? Well, this is Dr. Raihan would be able to answer, or someone else, for that matter. Any Surid, so I have done it, all the queries. But still, is there any time? Then I can show one slide. Do we have a time?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We have more than 5 minutes, sir.
Okay, so in that case, I can these slides, the good, the one I will discuss. Basically, cross-border paperless state. Those who are here who have joined here from the different companies, different government offices, you can see that laws and regulation for electronic transaction, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, all the countries, the BIMSTEC, they have already implemented. It's good in the sense that, but look at some other, elements which required for the value chain, because companies like Bangladesh and India, or those who are connected globally, they have no time to send their people to, customs office. They would like to file all the documents online, right? If you do not have any Wi-Fi access, you become, I become mad. What happened? When the Wi-Fi I will get. Similarly, the companies who are exporting or importing, if they don't get an online access for submission of documents, it is a huge cost for them because lack of human resources, the quality of, trade facility. Start the work. Certificate of origin, India has already started. So FTA partners of India, certificates of origin are now online submitted. Online. Bangladesh did it, but they have withdrawn later on. So they need to come back, If you like to have a fully integrated online system, this is going to help exporters of garment exporters of Bangladesh, basically, because they are ready. If they are exporting to Bhutan, Bhutan is not ready. If they would like to export the Myanmar, Myanmar is not ready. So also other countries to the competent authority in Bangladesh, they should, and all other countries as well, they should at least complete these 5, 6 mandates for electronic paperless or contactless documentation, for which no investment is required. It's only about intent by the government. Thank you.
Thank you again, Dr. Probir, for your insightful session. Hopefully, we will know more things from you in future sessions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and also
if you can provide the PPT, sir.
Yes, the PowerPoint will be provided, Probir.
Yeah, I will share. You can share. Huh?
Thank you.
And we'll have a
Thank
15
you.
minutes break, but
Thank
don't
you.
go away because the Zoom session will remain open, and we will look forward to meeting you in the next session. Thank you, Dr. Prabir De. It has been a
Thank you,
wonderful
Salim.
session.
Thank you,
and thank you
Salim.
so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Surit.